What's up? Today I want to do some testing on arrows. I want to see how much of a difference 100 grains makes in point of impact, arrow speed, so feet per second, and the kinetic energy that arrow has. So we're going to be testing a Easton FMJ that is 530 grains and an Easton 5.0 that is 430 grains. So I'm going to be testing those three metrics today with these two arrows. Let's get after it. To start, I'm going to be using a chronograph to measure the speed. I want to see what the feet per second difference is, so I have that set up here. I'll be shooting through that into a target. Hoyt RX5 at 75-pound draw with a 27-inch draw length. ...270 feet per second on the first shot. I just shot through the target into the wall for 269.8 feet per second. So I thought that I would be good. This target is definitely a little shot out. I did not think it was that shot out. So I'm gonna grab another target and stack it. Right now, I'm gonna try to figure out how to fix this. Yeah, that is an arrow in my wall. Luckily, it came out easy. So I'm gonna go grab a second target and put it up here. I threw up my dice target. This thing's a lot denser than the layered foam target, so. And I have the layered foam target kind of backing it, so let's do our third shot and get an average. .270.5. That puts my average right around 270 feet per second with a 430 grain arrow out of my bow. Okay, so next up we have the FMJ 500 grain arrow. Now this is a 100 grain difference in arrows. I have no clue. 100 grain difference in arrows, seeing what the speed difference is. .243.9 feet per second. .244.3. .243.1. So you're looking at a speed difference of 243 feet per second, just call it that, versus 270 feet per second. 27 feet per second difference. But what does that mean? What does that change in the point of impact, in the kinetic energy? I am going to go test point of impact next because I'm really curious about, okay, at 50 yards, what's a group of three look like versus a group of three? Are they going to be this close? Are they going to group just fine? Or are they going to be at 2 feet apart? I'm really curious. Let's go find out. This is going to be the point of impact test. I'm at 40 yards. I'm going to shoot a group of three with the 430 grain arrows, which are the Easton 5.0s, and that is what I tuned my bow to. So I do expect them to group a little bit better, but right now I'm just curious about how much lower is that 530 grain arrow going to hit. So shoot a group of three, aiming at this top left black dot in the bail target. Not a great group, honestly. I feel like I usually can shoot better than that. So now we have the 500 grain arrow at 40 yards, aiming at the same spot. Wow, that is quite a big difference in point of impact. Let's go look at it. You can see where my first three arrows, the 430 grain ones, this is what my bow's tuned to. At 40 yards, I would like to have a little bit tighter of a group, but you can see the average I would say elevation is probably right around here, even with this black dot. Whereas the average elevation here is probably right on the top of this green line, and that's a good 6 or 7 inches apart. My guess would have been that it would have been a lot closer together, but it is 100 grain difference. 60 yards, shooting the same black dot, top left. I'm gonna shoot a group of 3 of my 430 grain arrows, and then a group of 3 of the 530 grain arrows. Again, to see the point of impact. I'm expecting these things to almost hit in that bottom left black dot. So this should be really interesting. I feel like I'm shooting off to the right now. Elevation's pretty good. I am shooting a little bit to the right. So I'm just gonna really pay attention to my grip this time. Let's shoot the 530 grain arrows at 60 yards. Let's go take a peek. I think I'm shooting a little bit to the right here, clearly, with these first 3 shots. But definitely average elevation, maybe a little bit low. That's probably just me. But that's close to the dot for 60 yards. Again, I wish it was a lot better of a group. But then down here, you're dropping probably 1.5 feet. I mean, a foot's like what? I don't know, maybe a foot, 1.5 feet. I'm at 60 yards. That's crazy to me, honestly. I thought it would be a little bit closer. Well, actually, I after that first one, I figured, okay, it might double and jump down to here. Let's pull them, and I want to do the math and figure out what the kinetic energy difference is. Because I did the math, and it was really interesting. The heavier arrow had 0.11 less foot-pounds of energy, which is how you measure the output of kinetic energy, basically. And I always thought that a heavier arrow would have more kinetic energy than a lighter arrow when fired out of the same bow. This has proved that incorrect, at least in this specific circumstance. I don't know if this can be applied to all arrows or what, but for this test, the heavier arrow has less kinetic energy than the light arrow. And so I can get into so many other things on, well, then I did the math for momentum, and the heavier arrow had 11% more momentum than the lighter arrow. And there's all these other metrics you can get into, and all these tests and different opinions people have. And I'm trying to look at the facts here of, okay, factually, as far as energy goes, the difference between these 2 arrows in energy is almost nothing. And so for me, I don't see a benefit in shooting the heavier arrow when that would limit the range I can shoot, or I can practice at, because I can't dial my sight far enough to shoot 80, 90 yards with the heavier arrow on my setup. Because I have such a short draw length, I would need to dial that sight a lot further. So I'm going to keep shooting the 430 grain arrow, and I'll just go over this build with you so you guys can know what my arrow build is right now. This is the Easton 5.0 high velocity with the X3 boning vanes on it. Then I have the insert with a collar. You can see that. Insert with a collar. And then I run 125 grain point on the front. I find that this gives me a very good balance of FOC, of weight being, 430 grains. That's kind of a perfect balance for me. But the biggest takeaway that you should have from this video is go test your own gear. Figure out what you want. If you want a really hard-hitting, heavy arrow, go do that. If you like shooting really far and light arrows, go do that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have learned something and you go shoot your bow and test something and try something new. Please subscribe. I am doing more videos like this and gear reviews. I want to do more YouTube, so I'm going to start doing it. If you like this stuff, follow along. If not, thank you so much for watching.